is MS Relief official launch, Unleash the Joy Factor. We're here today, that's co-founders Trish Robichaud and Linda Grace Cox, beautiful blondie over there. We are back today we are so excited to tell you about our guest in this particular interview in our series. Our guest is Elaine DeLack, and she's an RN whose work focuses on research and treatment options in multiple sclerosis, depression, autism, and Alzheimer's. Her scientific publications have appeared in the journals Multiple Sclerosis, Clinical and Laboratory Research, and Alternative Medicine Review. Formerly, she worked in the care of the elderly and those with chronic disease in transitional care facilities. In the past 12 years, she's been active in the advancement of new treatments for multiple sclerosis and related disease states. She's developed and patented treatments for MS, depression, and bipolar depressive disorder, and autism spectrum. You have been a busy lady since Karen was launched.
Oh my! Excuse for my office to be so messy.
There you go. There you go. She's lectured throughout the United States and Canada to patients, doctors, and pharmacists on issues of medical research and study application. Fascinating. She's the CEO and founder of 2 medical research companies. Mrs. DeLack's passion for research was spurred by her need to find something to help herself. Elaine has MS as well, and was diagnosed when she was about 30 years old. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I want to start by saying that how you got even into thinking about doing research to find a cure. You know, and my book talks about this a little bit. I've had a lot of doctors say this too, you know, how could just a nurse, how could a nurse...
Just a nurse.
Just a nurse, yeah. In fact, I've always said I should have some more acronym behind my name should be RNJAN, or RN, just a nurse. I always hear that, but, and I've had a lot of doctors say, how could you have done this, and I don't know how other people believe or how you may believe, but it's a guidance. It's if you want to call it divine, if you want to call it universe, if you want to call it God, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it. It's almost, I just get these ideas. So when you say, how did you come up with this? I did. It's just these things. I get these, and that's how I even have expanded out to bipolar, depression, etc. Is I just get these things. And actually, I have to say it was my granddaughter that got me thinking on moving further than that. My granddaughter last August, all of a sudden, quit eating. She quit eating. She was scared to death to swallow. She was only 3 years old. She was scared to death to swallow. She wouldn't even swallow her saliva. She had to put her in children's hospitals. She had to be fed by an NG tube. She had that for it took about a month and a half before she started eating again. And for some reason, I kept thinking it was worms. That worms were the problem. She kept talking about if she that something was coming in her throat and tickling her like a leaf. She said, there's a leaf here, and she was scared to death. Every time she'd go to eat or swallow, it would stimulate that. And for some reason, I kept thinking worms. Well, they looked, they couldn't find worms, etc. But I started researching worms, not really knowing why. Well, here's another thing that happens, right? So I get this email from a doctor, and he asked me, I actually get 2 emails the same day from 2 different doctors. One doctor was asking me, sent me this thing about hookworms. They've been using hookworms to treat MS, some people. And some people have been saying, well, I'm seeing some benefit, using the hookworms, etc. And so he asked me what my thoughts were of trying that. I said, I'd stay away from that. I said, these MS patients, their immune system is already suppressed. You give them a parasite like that, how are you going to control it? It could just take over, So I would stay away from it. Same day, I got an email, but I'm reading this research that this doctor said, and it showed that these MS patients that they gave the hookworms to, when they cloned their cells that had gotten the hookworms, those cells could no longer make interleukin-4. Now that really raised my a flag for me, because there's research that shows that MS patients lose the ability to make interleukin 4. Interleukin 4 is made from some of our T cells, and we lose the ability to make interleukin 4. Now, in fact, they've shown that as your ability to make interleukin 4 goes down, the disease progresses, and so does your disability. So it's like, all the more reason I wouldn't give hookworms, to a person with MS, because it shows that they actually can't make interleukin 4 to do that. So then the same day, I got an email from a different doctor asking me about, it was on LDN, which I have known a lot about LDN. Well, interestingly, the link he sent me for LDN, when I clicked on it, it came to this research study, had nothing to do with LDN. It was this, I never would have found this research. It talked about interleukin 4 and how it stimulates the opioid receptor, And so, because I knew LDN can have an effect on the opioid receptor, I thought, okay, well, that's what he wanted me to see. I never put it together that it wasn't it. Until later, when I sent it, later on, I went to pull up that thing again, and this time it came up the actual article. He tried to say, interest me. This was, wait a minute. First off, I thought, okay, it was just a hyperlink that was wrong. No, it wasn't a hyperlink. He had sent me the actual attached PDF article. And when I clicked on that article the first time, it was this whole different article.
Wow.
It wasn't at all about LDN. This article that I clicked on, so I read this thing. I'm reading this article, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So, interleukin 4, your interleukin 4 stimulates the opioid receptors. And if you don't have it, they're silent. They don't work. You have to stimulate it stimulates the opioid receptor, which then stimulates your histamine to be converted to histamine 2. Stimulates the MAOA to make that conversion. So it's like, this all plays together. I'm too low. I'm too far down the cascading waterfalls. I got to get higher. Okay, what could possibly interfere with interleukin 4? Well, I'm thinking worms. Worms can interfere with interleukin 4. Because when a worm gets into your body, it wants to, how we fight the worm is producing interleukin 4. So if the worm gets into your body and stops the interleukin 4, so it survives in your body, right? So then I'm thinking, well, how in the world would I ever figure out which worm, which parasite it could possibly be? I get another email from a different doctor this time. This doctor says, it goes, what do you know about alpha-linolenic acid and MS? And I just wrote back, just kind of brushed off. Oh, I would stay away from alpha-linolenic acid with MS patients, You don't want to get too many polyunsaturated fats. Well, he didn't let it go. He wrote back and he said, "Blood, alpha-linolenic acid is highest between 40 to 70 degrees latitude." And he said, and that's the same parallels that you see with MS, or more prevalent 40 to 70 degrees latitude. I'm like, okay, I got to do a little research. So I did some research, and I'm thinking, I just wonder if this could be related to a worm. Sure enough, found the worm that is the only known organism we know that makes alpha-linolenic acid, and it resides 40 to 70 degrees latitude. I'm thinking, that's it. So I started studying this worm, and it does. It inhibits your interleukin 4, and it causes this whole cascade. I thought, okay, I'm going to come up with a treatment that'll treat this thing. So I started doing this on myself. First, I had to use the treatment every day. And pretty soon, I was like, well, I won't put it on until I have symptoms. And then later on the day, I'd have symptoms, so I put it on. The next day, it was later and later. And so pretty soon, it was like, I didn't need it today. And then pretty soon, I needed it every 3 days. And pretty soon, it's just once a week. I haven't used the treatment or anything for a month now. It's just, I have no doubt. Now's where, okay, now we have to get this validated. Because in reading about this parasite, it can become resistant. So I've got to make sure that I have the right treatment for that so that I don't make it resistant. Then we have a superbug. So that's where, right now, I'm in the search of collaborating with a university to check this out and see for sure if I've got the right parasite, right treatment for that parasite.
Wow.
What? Here it goes.
What an exciting journey.
I just stay open. You never know what divine guidance you're going to get. You just stay open to it,
and you are asymptomatic.
Absolutely. Not even any tingling.
How long?
Wow.
I'd always get symptoms back if I stopped the Procarin. And even on that molecule I was working on with myself for a while, I had to take it every 2 days or I get my symptoms back, type thing. But like I say, I've been a month now with nothing. And I do Zumba, three nights a week. And I don't know if you know what Zumba is, but it's really intense. I mean, I'm sweating. Sweat's dripping off my hair. I mean, it's just intense.
Wow. And how, you said it's been a month you've been symptom-free?
A month where, I could get myself symptom-free on the Procarin. I could get myself symptom-free on that molecule. But I always had to take them to do it. And this, I don't have to.
So your body is doing it, is healthy. It's doing everything it needs to do.
What I really think is I'm getting rid of the parasite. And this parasite's notorious for causing gene mutations. And so I think that slowly over time, those gene mutations are mutating back. They're getting corrected. And in fact, there was a research study that they did on 9,000 MS patients, and they found that 23 genes were mutated in MS patients. And these genes all are involved with T-cell, what we call T-cell maturation differentiation. Maturation differentiation means the same thing. Well, interestingly, interleukin-4 is the conductor. It's for the T-cell orchestra. It tells the cells what they're going to mature into. And so if you get your interleukin-4 depleted, it's just chaos. The immune system doesn't know what it's supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where they think that it's this autoimmune disease, because it goes awry. Your immune system goes awry. Well, it's because it's got to give back the conductor.
Right.
And things will get straightened out.
An immune system with no conductor is like having a bunch of little militia men with guns running around, not any idea who the enemy is, shooting everybody.
Absolutely.
That's what's happening. That is so exciting. I love it. I know I told you, Elaine, that I would really love to be one of your test guinea pigs, and you wouldn't do it. Why is that? That you wouldn't let me do it?
I don't do it to me. I'm actually doing it for a few reasons. I could get in trouble. Secondly, I just experiment on myself. But the other thing is, I just have to be sure you've got the right treatment. It's like if you go in, you say you've got a urinary tract infection, and they do what they call a culture and sensitivity. They culture it and figure out what bug they're working with, and then they give it to all these different antibiotics to make sure they've got the right treatment to best get rid of that bug, right? That's what I've got to do. I mean, I have to make sure, now I got to get with a lab and make sure we've got the right bug and we've got the right treatment. Otherwise, it could become resistant. And that, I would be doing everyone a horrible injustice if I made it resistant. So that's why, I'm willing to take the risk in myself, but not in others.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted everyone to hear it.
The so the current, where you're at currently with the research, Elaine, is based on the supposition that this worm is responsible. Wow.
And the thing is, the worm is so common that, it's probably in all populations. I think I've even found the lab we can use to determine if you have it. But the question is, if it's so common, I mean, if it's in the environment, how come everybody?
Exactly.
Right.
Everybody should have MS.
Everybody get MS. That's the other interesting thing. Is I think it's cadmium. you have cadmium in your system. I think it turns this worm to become pathogenic. Interestingly, there was a research study back in, they looked at a study from 1982 to 1985 in this town called Galion, Ohio. They had a huge outbreak of MS. And they traced it back to the cadmium in the sewage treatment plant in the river water. Now, interestingly, this parasite, its ideal food is E. coli. Well, so it was living on the E. coli in the septic system, and they were using cadmium for treatment to cause that thing to just go ballistic.
Wow.
Consequently, they had this huge outbreak of MS between 1982 and 1985 that they traced to the cadmium. That's how I realized that the cadmium was probably the trigger that's making this. So, depending on the terrain of your body, you could probably be exposed to this parasite, and it's not going to do any harm. But if you've got cadmium, or you've got a certain, makeup of your body that allows this thing to just go wacko, you're going to probably get MS. And cadmium is becoming such a problem. There's a huge outbreak, a huge prevalence of MS in the military now.
Really?
And interestingly, if you study cadmium, cadmium is used. It's used in the making of all artillery. It coats it's used in not only the gunpowder. Fireworks are full of cadmium. It's not only is it the ammunition, the gunpowder, but also the shell casings and stuff. Even our cars. You remember, years ago, the old cars, you were lucky if you got 100,000 miles out of them, right? And now they can go 200,000+ miles, right? Well, it's the engines are coated. They use cadmium in the smelting of metals, etc., and they use cadmium to coat metal to protect it from oxidation. So our cars are giving off cadmium. We've got all these cadmium batteries that are going into landfills. This cadmium is becoming a really bad issue. MS patients have never gotten along very well with chelation. Chelation always seems to really, and I thought it was just the stress on the body that was why they didn't do
Yeah, because it's a very extreme procedure.
Yeah, cadmium is of the same family, elemental family, as your aluminum, your mercury, those heavy metals, right? And we don't absorb cadmium as easily as we absorb aluminum and mercury and stuff. So aluminum and mercury are in a higher concentration than cadmium in your body. Cadmium is more toxic, but but we absorb aluminum and mercury more. Aluminum and mercury don't affect this parasite. Just cadmium does. Well, interestingly, when you take and use a chelator, that chelator is going to grab whatever metals are there in its highest concentration. So it's going to grab the aluminum, it's going to grab the mercury, and you pull those out of the system. Well, guess what you just did? You just increased the concentration gradient of cadmium. It doesn't have the competitors with the other heavy metals now. So you actually make it worse. And of course, remember, cadmium just makes this thing go wacko. So I think that's one of the main reasons people with MS do not do well with chelation.
Interesting theory. So the target is the worm, the parasite. Very cool. So that's your goal right now. That's your objective, to get to how to kill the parasite.
I'm trying to get a meeting with this university in April. So if I can get that meeting and get them to see to this and collaborate with me, that's what I'm hoping.
We just lost Linda. Elaine, this has been amazing. Oh, you are such an inspiration. I just honestly can't imagine the unknowns that you have faced in this journey. I'm sure that, your training as a nurse taught you lots about the human body, but I'm sure it didn't teach you about MAOA.
Trish, though, some people might look at that as a hindrance, but I see that as that's been a blessing to me, to be dumber than a stump, because as long as I came in ignorant, not knowing anything, completely whiteboard, just an open mind. Because if I'd have gone on to become a doctor or something like that, they make you believe that that this is it, even though it's all just still a hypothesis.
Right.
This whole thing that the immune system is attacking the myelin is all just a hypothesis. They've never proven that, but yet they teach it as if they had, as if it were fact.
Wow.
And so it's actually been a blessing to me to be just dumber than the stump. To just be completely open. I don't have a clue. And just be open to anything. And so I'm not locked into any preconceived notion.
So the fresh perspective that you bring is kind of virgin territory in terms of theory, right? So you're able to bring in no preconceived notion or no bias into that that research setting. There she is. And I still don't have your video feed. Wow, Elaine, this has been amazing. Not only is have you produced amazing results. Linda, did you want to?
Oh, I just want to thank you again. I thank you so much for your personal help for my situation, and then being willing to come here and share your time and your education.
We've got to have you back on for an interview after you figure out where you're going next.